This is month 5 of $5 Quilt. It is July. We just celebrated the 4th of July. I hope you had a great time. And I'm here to do the cutting and assembly video for the $5 Quilt block. This is your instruction this month. So you can see, again, you have your cutting and your assembly. And then the blocks are behind me. Hopefully you can see them. And yes, they look a little harder and they are a little harder for sure. So I just want you to know that we're definitely stepping up in the complexity, but that's how you learn and that's how you grow. So I'm going to cut this block right now so you can see it cut, and then we're going to have a separate video for the assembly. So let me show you. I'm going to slide it down. Okay, so the first thing, the color number 1, you have 2 pieces. And the long piece, we're going to cut a 2-inch strip and 4 2-inch squares. So again, I'm going to clean cut my edge like that. And then I'm going to measure, and essentially you're going to start out by cutting 2 2-inch strips. Okay, got some reflection going on. There we go. There's 2. And there is 2. Now we're going to get to strip piece again this month, so I'm going to set that aside. So I'm going to leave one of these whole, and then I'm going to cut one into 4 2-inch squares. One of these months I need to show them the stripology ruler.
We did it on what?
Oh, did we?
Advanced? It was
Yeah.
advanced.
All right, so I'm going to line up, and I've lined up on all 3 sides. So there's 1 2-inch square. There's, doesn't do you any good to move it before you cut it. 2 2-inch squares. I feel like the Count Dracula. 3 2-inch squares and a 4th one. All right, there we go. We have that all done. All right, so there's your strip. Now, with the square, we gave you a 4-inch piece, and we need to cut it down to 3.5, and I've pre-shrunk this, and look, I still have tons of room. So using my square ruler, long as I have my 3.5-inch line in here, I'm going to cut my first 2 sides. Okay, and now with those sides cut, I can bring the 3.5-inch over, and I can line it up on each side, there and there. And now you have a 3.5-inch square, which is what we need for our center. So that's color number 1. Color number 2 is a nice big piece. And we need 8 3.5-inch squares. And that's a lot. Now, if you have a ruler large enough, you can cut this into 2 3.5-inch strips. If you don't, you can use, and you have this size ruler, you can just do your 3.5-inch strips this way, whichever works easiest for you. I'm going to do it the quick way because I have the long ruler. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to clean cut one edge. Okay, and I'm going to measure over 3.5 inches. Reflection is, sorry, I have to put my head into it to block the reflection. There's a 3.5, and there's a 3.5. Now this piece seems extra big, and I believe it is because it was a piece on the fold, and sometimes the folded pieces have more fabric in them, but boy, if you get one of those, you've got yourself a nice bonus piece for sure. Now I am going to put these right on top of each other, and I'm going to clean cut the edge. And now I'm going to cut 4 3.5-inch squares out of here. Now I'm going to use the smaller one because it's easier to maneuver. Okay, so there's my 3.5, and both lines are lined up. There's one. And you can use your square ruler for this too. I actually like rotary cutting I know a lot of people don't, but it's peaceful to me, as long as they don't make any mistakes. There we go, and that goes in the scrap pile. Okay, 8 3.5 inch squares. And then we're left with this great big piece. Now, this one, we can't cut this way because our strips are going to be different widths. So we're going to actually put it this way, and we're going to cut 2 3.5 inch strips off of here and 5 2-inch strips off of here. So let's start that by clean cutting an edge. Okay, and let's get our 2 3.5 strips off of there. And as you remember, I hope, on the instructions, the numbers up here are the size of the strip to cut, and then how to subcut them is over here. Sometimes I don't always remind you of that, and it's like, how do you know what size to cut the strip? So, because I have already figured that out for you when I figured out the cutting. So I've got 2 3.5 inch strips. Okay, now I need to just cut 2-inch strips until I can't anymore. Okay, there's one. So we have the 3.5 and we have the 2-inch. All right, one of the 2 inches we're going to leave long because we're going to strip piece. These 4 we're going to cut into 2-inch squares. But first let's cut these into, and your instinct is to cut it into a 3.5 inch square, but that's not what we're going to do. So I'm going to clean cut this edge using my straight edge to make sure it's square. And we need to cut 4 2-inch segments out of here. So it's a rectangle, not a square. So there's 1, 2. Let's get this one lined up. Notice I'm lining all 3 sides. 3. This mat's an older mat and it's pretty chewed up. All right, there's 4.
So I grabbed one from the back.
All right, so we've got 8 2 by 3.5 inch rectangles, and now we're going to just take these and cut them into 2-inch squares. And I'm just going to stack them. And this is for sure where the Stripology ruler always would come in handy to do them all. I'm taking a chance stacking them, but that's okay. All right, so you may want to do these just 2 at a time. It's up to you. Sure. Not happy, they're not straight. I may have to do 2 at a time. What I'm looking at is that my 2-inch lines are both straight. That's pretty good. I can clean cut the edge there.
How many of those do you do?
We need 1 2 3 4 times 4, 16 of them.
Okay.
And these are for the stitch and flip in this block. So that's where you're going to use them, if that gives you any indication of what's ahead. All right, and there I have 16 of those. So I have 16 2-inch squares. I have 8 4 by 2 or 3.5 by 2-inch squares. I have a 2 by width of fabric and 2 by width of fabric strip. I have 8 3.5 inch squares, I have, this is a 3.5-inch square, and then I have 4 2-inch squares. So that is your block cutting for month 5. Good luck.